7a, solve 3x squared plus 48. Here we go. Step 1, isolate the variable. So 3x squared equals negative 48. Divide each side by 3. I'm going to get x squared equals negative 16. Okay, so x is going to be the square root plus or minus the square root of negative 16. So it's going to be plus or minus I square root of 16. Square root of 16 is 4, so it's going to be plus or minus 4i. Okay, 17 or 7b. Solve. First step. I got negative 5x squared minus 150 equals 0. Step 1, isolate the variable. Negative 5x squared equals 150. Divide each side by negative 5. X squared equals negative 30. Square each side, so x equals plus or minus the square root of negative 30, which is the same thing as plus or minus I square root of 30. Okay, what can we break down 30 with? Really, can't think of any factors, so x equals plus or minus I square root of 30. Okay, 7c. Solve. 8x squared plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2 to each side. We're going to get 8x squared equals negative 2. Divide each side by 8. X squared equals negative 2 over 8, which I can simplify to negative 1 over 4. So x is going to equal, we're going to square each side, square root each side, plus or minus the square root of negative 1/4, which is the same thing as plus or minus I square root of 1/4. So x equals plus or minus I times the square root of 1 over the square root of 4, which should be plus or minus 1/2 I. So x is going to equal plus or minus 1/2 I. So the answer is B. Okay. If you're not good with the radicals, you'll need to do some practice work on that. Okay, next example. Finding the first three outputs for a function. Okay, so for a function f of z, z squared plus I, so you start with 0, solve. When you solve for 0, you get I. So that's the first function. You plug I in, that's the second function. That output you plug back into the function, that's your third. And you solve every time, and that's what your third output would be. So you found your first output, your second output, and your third. And we'll talk about it in the next example. I just want to kind of get through. So all you're doing is you're plugging in the solutions each time. So here we go. Find the first three outputs for f of z. So let's start. F of z equals z squared minus 1 plus I. So the first one is when x equals 0, what do we get? Well, that's going to be 0 minus 1 plus I, which is going to be negative 1 plus I. So there's your first function. Okay, so our second function would be f of negative 1 plus I equals negative 1 plus I squared minus 1 plus I. So let's square that. So that's going to be 1 minus 2I minus 1 minus 1 plus I. So I'm going to get negative 1I minus 1. Okay. Which I can rewrite as negative 1 minus I. Okay, so that's the second function. So now the third function. F of negative 1 minus I equals negative 1 minus I squared minus 1 plus I. Well, let's see, that's going to be 1 plus 2I minus 1. minus I1 plus I. So it's going to be negative 1 plus 3I. So our answer would be A. Okay? So look that over, and again, the biggest thing is you should have remembered the reason I could do it so fast. A plus B squared is nothing more than A squared plus 2AB plus B squared. This is going to be important for you to remember. And I applied it every time in that equation and that one. Okay? Good luck.